Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today we're doing more of an independent map analysis theory in regard to the cause of death of Noah Presgrove, but more so tying it in with the concepts and components leading up to it and the possibilities, and tying in the possibilities of how one thing could have led to another with the influence of what we've learned in recent time. As some would say, Zachary Wright, but at least from what I saw, Jack Newton being told by what Zachary Wright had thought, but not seeing it directly from the horse's mouth in regard to Noah somehow falling out of a vehicle randomly in some way. I just want to tie it in together today. But importantly, I also want to highlight the problems with it, the problems externally, and that can be mentioned first of all as a backstory because there is dysfunction regarding it and it might be from certain light side perspectives. So don't go anywhere. We're doing a visual map analysis today, and I can break it down bit by bit, use reasoning ability to explain the possibilities how one person ended up from here to over there. The counterpoints would be the cause of injuries and maybe the order of how they occurred in, which could be a counterpoint. But I don't want to think too far ahead when first of all what's needed is to get an understanding and a grip of the smaller factors leading up to the outcome. So this could be a part 1, part 2 video. We see how it goes. If there needs to be updates in the future. But welcome to anyone watching this live premiere. Share your thoughts, opinions, reactions in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. And if you do want to leave your additional comments and thoughts after watching the video, drop a comment down below under the video, questions and whatnot, and I can respond back to them at a later point. If you want to catch up on recent coverage by me, if you've missed out on any important videos, don't worry. Top right corner where the eye symbol is, click up there. You get the drop down menu box with the full playlist and the loose videos attached. In recent time, it's been a little bit wild the way things have gone. But whilst the shade can be thrown at the dark side, maybe the light side have slipped up a little bit here and there too. Whether it's give and take, end of the day, freedom of speech, and the way some people have acted, they've definitely been edging on the boundary. I don't know if that's done because they know what they're doing, they're pushing it on purpose, or it's just how they are, uncontrollable and a bit wild. But nevertheless, I'm going to maintain a level of balance because I know how it can go off the scale, and maybe I'll bring that up very shortly. But for anyone that wants to support this channel in a alternative or practical anonymous way, you can find that down below in the pinned comment. There is a PayPal link to me, and if you want to follow through with that, there are ways to do so down below. And if there are any issues with pending stuff or delays, that's just security reasons in the background. All safe, all works out in the end. As a heads up to anyone in the background, big shout out to those that have supported the channel recently. And of course, big shout out to those last night in the live chat. I can't remember everybody's name. I think there was Badger Life, possibly, Watcher of Crazy, Cleo, Misty Clee. These are originals from the past when I started off doing true crime for the very first time. So big shout out to those 3 individuals. And then also E. Hendley, massive shout out to them too. And anyone else in between if I have missed out on names. You know, it was one of those things where I was looking down at my phone for a few minutes. I looked back up and I noticed it was like banner after banner on screen. I was like, whoa, I got to catch up and see where I'm at here. And I was able to catch up, but it was funny and positive. But with that being said, one thing I have noticed, and it's got nothing to do with it, it's separate stuff. I think YouTube has been a bit dodgy. So when some people have said previously that the screen has gone blank or it's frozen or you've been locked out of chat, don't worry. The same has happened to me recently where the screen will go off, it'll come up with an error message and it says it's timed out or the server is full. So I've got to close the tab or the link and then reopen it again. It's a bit silly, a bit annoying, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Just wanted to give you a heads up there in regard to that. But I just hope that there are enough people watching right now. And even if not many are watching, let's give the backstory immediately before there is dysfunction later, before there are any catfights or wildness in the chat. The reality is the way Michael Facecaz behaved last night was somewhat unnecessary. In terms of the message spam, even if it's done in a light-hearted way, pretending to be hacking into people, it's just a bit silly and childish. See, when certain people are attacked within the case or community and or accused falsely of doing stuff, when you respond back and do that same stuff you've been accused of, even if it's in a light-hearted way, it can be misinterpreted, but it also does that self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're not doing yourself any favours. And of course, if it's all above board, as in it's for the case and it's all about the case and justice, why are you lowering yourself supposedly to the standards of the dark side then, if that's your mindset? Why lower yourself? Why not be a better person? See, these comments, what I saw last night by Michael Kaz, in terms of the weird coding and all of that, it could have been done as an intimidation tactic. It could have been done as just simply messing about and being sarcastic. Regardless, it's just unnecessary, that type of spam. And it's a bit childish, right? But this is what the reality is. Some people, and maybe Robbie Taylor said, just block Michael, just get rid of him. Yeah, I could do. And in the past, in a different case, I probably would have considered it or put him in timeout like a naughty boy. But you know why I didn't do it this time? It's because I built up so much of a foundation with time in this particular case that there needs to be a level of balance in an unbiased way. Full perspective, looking at it, hearing about it from different sides, from the light side and more recently to the dark side. If I was to block, report, mute Michael Kaz, who's kind of like on the light side of the case, and I guess Team Caden Pressey, by me doing that type of action would just give ammunition to certain people to say, oh look, Warlight Wrath was ordered by a person on the dark side to block and silence Michael Kaz. Oh, and at around the same time or a few days before was paid off as well. So it clearly shows that there is a link. It clearly shows it isn't balanced after all. Multiple steps ahead. Whether you want to act out in a spasmodic way or not, there is a level of freedom of speech. Some people may try and abuse it, but in terms of if you're going to allow it from the dark side, and the way the light side will say, the dark side is saying so much bad stuff, nasty things, and Wrath is allowing it to happen, supposedly. I just hope to think that people could control and conduct themselves appropriately like adults that they are. But even if it is a bit of a zoo at the time, there is still that balance in allowing the light side to possibly do the same exact thing. So, whilst Michael Kaz, as an example, acted the way he did last night, which was somewhat unnecessary, some people could use the argument and say, and the same can apply to people on the dark side, the way they supposedly act unnecessary. Either way, freedom of speech. You should be lucky. You should be grateful. Because there'll be other platforms. There'll be pages on Facebook that will kick you in seconds if you are a naughty individual or question something in a simple way. But it's not as extreme here. So just remember that. If some people throw the toys out the pram, if some people get sexually frustrated or anything else in between, just calm down, breathe, and remember it's under control here. And when it's not, some additional tools will need to be brought out. Then it will lead to complaining within some people, stating, why is this getting so creepy weird? This is BDSM. This is some kind of domination tactic. This is a backdoor matrix route, and it's not got nothing to do with hacking, but everything to do with whipping. See? If you act in a naughty way, you will be treated like a naughty individual, and tools will be used accordingly. You would have brought it upon yourself, okay? We can be light-hearted, and then other times we can be hard-hearted. Ooh, shh, calm down. Don't corrupt your mind. Be a good person. Be a good boy, okay? Anyway, this is where we now lock in with the Noah Presgrove case and the different outcomes and what one of the dysfunctions and problems is. whilst I'm trying to understand a possible theory of cause of death, what ends up happening is when it's considered a possible accident, it wasn't intended. Somehow Noah was asleep in the back of a vehicle or truck pickup. At first, it might not seem believable whatsoever, and it's just hard to comprehend, but at least try and understand it before dismissing it. And that's what I do. There is a time and moment for it. And with some additional material coming out with time, it might not directly be from the horse's mouth, I'll acknowledge that, because I haven't seen Zachary Wright state or mention as a possibility what he thinks could have happened to Noah. When someone like Robin Smith said, well, Zachary never said that to me. Why would he say it to Jack, though? Is it police telling people different things to test how things go? Who knows? But what had come up, and the other reason why I'm doing this video now, is to mention previously about the traffic. There wasn't any traffic passing through the town of Terrell, but Texas boys that could be heading south to get to Texas wouldn't need to, because they supposedly can head north and go down the back roads. That Brooke Bounds Carter knows those particular routes and maybe can shout them out in this video. Just understand it is pre-recorded, so if there needs to be an update, I'll be doing it in the next one. But I can use the Google Maps, satellite imagery to look at the roads, locate them, find the back roads and the possibilities to get into Texas, avoiding the cameras back down there, but heading north in the direction where Noah Presgrove was found at. Whether that be at the time of when Noah fell out of one of the Texas boys' vehicles somehow, and they were oblivious, or if it's at a time of when Noah was already dead along the highway, and yet you had a certain wave of vehicles, people passing on by. It will tie in with last night's video about who is truly a witness. You say Caden Pressey is a witness to what exactly? The death of Noah, the actual cause of death, the timing? Because if not, well then, it's the people that were witnessing the death, present at the death and whatnot, who are really important. But do we even know who those people are? And that could tie in with the traffic, the level of it, the amount of people at the time passing on by. Let's not forget just a random member of the general public where a friend spoke on behalf of them online. Oh, my friend was driving south towards Terrell, onwards to that casino where she works at. And at 5 in the morning, there was a side-by-side which came out of nowhere and frightened me. 5 in the morning. Well, based off Caden Pressey's timeline, 15 minutes later, that's when Jack announced the news of Noah's death. So depending what timeline you look at, you could argue and say if Caden's was correct, well then that woman that was driving down that highway should have seen Noah's body on the highway, or seen maybe Jack or anybody else nearby. Depends the timing of it. See, this is what I mean. You can prove Caden Pressey's timeline to be true or not externally based off where another person was at a time. Possibly, to an extent. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. So anyone and everyone doesn't even have to be a party goer, but someone or some people that may have been passing on by, did they see Noah's body on the side of the highway? If not, is it because they just weren't looking? Or is it because Noah wasn't dead at that point? Or Noah was dead but hadn't been dropped off, if you're going to use the foul play concept. But obviously, we can't be focusing deeply in on the foul play concept today, because if it's to do with the theory of Texas boys heading north, Noah's in one of the vehicles somehow, then falls out, there isn't foul play there. But still, if someone catched on shortly after, then panicked, and wanted to try and cover it up or incriminate themselves, which would be counterproductive, but they're not thinking clearly straight at the time. Regardless, a form of action taken, manipulation, foul play, tampering. It can happen. It probably has happened in the past, but in other cases. I'm just giving you the different possibilities before we go on. But there are different components to it today, and I will use my memory, best of my ability, to try and tie it in line with certain events following and the direction of Noah and where he could have truly ended up at to then end up elsewhere. through a mode of transportation, but not as a hit and run. And people will be screeching at me, and they have done already in the past. Yo, bro, Raf, you should know this. It can't be this. It can't be that because of the end outcome, because of this, because that. Just let me breathe. Let me focus on the factors leading up. It's not that hard, piss pot, because my mind, my methods won't be the same as other people's. If you rush me, you will get a shit outcome, okay? You want me to fast track things, I will forget stuff, and that could be detrimental. I will go at the bloody pace that I feel is necessary and works, okay? And if it doesn't work for some people, tough shit. With that being said, I think what we can do is jump right on in to the map analysis and start off from a particular event leading up to when Noah just simply walked out of the house. Let's move on. So the particular timeline that I'm using is more of a basic one based mainly off hard evidence. And to be honest, that seems to be a thing some people out there fail to comprehend, where they will trust what a partygoer witness says, regardless of who it is, and put all the melons into one basket, hope on it till the cows come home, and yet the cows don't even eat melons, the cows want milk, and the milk can be seen as the form of hard evidence, which can tell a stronger story. I probably still need to do a bit of a discussion video about that, and whilst my comparison makes no bloody sense, what I'm about to say will. So, we don't need to read it all off because I've done videos about it in the past. Really, we just focus in around the time of when Noah had walked off or was considering to. So, just to be familiar with everything what we see on here, 1:50 in the morning, Noah Presgrove, Jack Newton, bathroom selfie, everything seems okay. And then 2:43, the call by Alicia, supposedly, where Caden wakes up. If it really was at 2:43. Or if it was closer to 3 in the morning. It depends, I guess, what timeline you listen to. There might be some call logs elsewhere. That could go a long way, but then they could tell alternative stories. 3:41, Jasmine Millan's Snapchat post, Noah is missing. So we're looking at just before 3:41, which would be kind of like 11 minutes earlier at around 3:30. The timestamp 3:30, there isn't any hard evidence, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. There's no hard evidence to my knowledge publicly which shows Noah walking away at 3:30. But based off what Caden Pressey had said in his own words, and basically being consistent with what Jasmine Millan had said November 3rd, 2023, is that it's normal for Noah to walk off, especially when drunk, and he would be gone for about 30 minutes or so. With the supposed events of what we've heard of, from the shower situation, more so than to the sleeping debacle, wanting to sleep in one of the two girls' beds, being rejected, maybe feeling just a little bit frustrated, but not wanting to cause a scene, then walking away. The only abnormality you could say is, if Caden Pressey and some others say Noah Presgrove would walk off when drunk because he wants to cool down and he doesn't want to impact anyone negatively in the moment. He wants to come back with a fresh face and perspective. Then why on this one occasion did Noah Presgrove supposedly call Avery Combs or Avery Howard a fat beep? Why would that happen? You know, if Noah Presgrove tends to just walk away to cool off, why on this one occasion did he say something like that? Unless that's what he has done in the past as well. It's just not been acknowledged the same way. But to me, it's just a bit of an abnormality. I thought I'd just put it out there. But still, Caden says it's normal for Noah to wander off. Now, it's worth taking that into consideration. We heard externally elsewhere, whether that be Jack Newton or maybe Sarah Long, references to in the past where Noah had ended up at one time maybe in a ditch or something, kind of asleep, resting. Another time possibly in a field, and at this time round Jack thought at one point a reference that he probably could make it back. If he's in one of the fields and it gets warm, he could make it back, return to the party house possibly. But that aside, with a reference by Jack Newton and labelling Logan as a witness to see Noah walking away, heading east in that direction, fading away into the darkness, and then later, fast forward on, being found down the highway over there. How does that even happen? Is it likely for Noah to just walk away and then walk down the highway? Not likely, personally. I said there was a small possibility that it could be possible if Noah was desperate, that desperate to leave the party and get back home, that he would somehow risk walking or jogging 44.2 miles back to his place of living. As much of a stretch as that is, desperate times, desperate measures. But in recent time, the theme of Noah wanting to leave and go back home has kind of faded away since, because there's been like counter evidence to suggest Noah wasn't as desperate to leave, that he didn't reach out to his father Victor, didn't call him for a ride home. And Victor confirmed that himself in recent time. Robin Smith has also reinforced it as well. The only area where she heard it mentioned about Noah wanting to leave, go home, was on Facebook. General discussions by strangers. No mention of Caden reaching out to her in the background either, personally. So it's a little bit weird. So it might not 100% rule out with Noah wanting to it won't rule out 100% Noah wanting to go home, because you still got Caden Pressey that had witnessed Noah approaching him for a ride home and shortly afterwards asking a couple of other people. But in the moment, it could be true that Noah wanted to go home, but then shortly afterwards, upon realising he can't get home, no one will give him a lift. He's like, oh well, I'll make the most of it here and just put up with it. See, it is possible to change your mind and how you feel in the moment and with time. In the moment, you might have a strong urge to do something, to be somewhere, to say something to someone. But then shortly afterwards, you might think, you know what? I've changed my mind. There's no need to. There's no rush. It's fine. It's okay. And then you just get on with it. And then whatever happens, happens from there. So I base it off with a bit of balance. Some people in recent time have interpreted it like, oh, Raf, you've gone off the deep end here. You completely disregarded Caden now. You're attacking him now. You're just going against everything. Blah, blah, blah. Naughty, naughty. No, I'm not. I'm actually using reasoning ability, which other humans fail to do so. Despite everything that's happened, I still acknowledge Caden Pressey in regard to what he saw, at least, face to face with Noah. But then the possibilities of what happened after that when Caden wasn't present. Caden is not a mind reader. Caden can't telepathically see or sense or pass on to figure out what's going on in Noah's mind, but there is a chance that Noah independently made a choice and decision to cool it off, as in, I'll be okay here at the party. And that can be complemented by the fact that Noah Presgrove did not reach out or call his father Victor, who could have given him a ride back home. So there's that. And if you wanted to reinforce it even more, the likes of, Breeley, the friends of Georgia, Breeley's older sisters that came on down to give him a lift back home, an attempt, let's just put it like that, down the highway, until Melissa, Georgia's mum, and Alicia, the niece, ended up arriving to, pull him up and get Georgia out and take her home. But that aside, that when Breeley's older sisters arrived, that they would have been willing to give Noah a ride home if they knew, but they didn't. And Noah Presgrove didn't mention anything, so maybe by then he was okay. He was okay with it. Oh, but then Noah Presgrove walking away at 3:30 later on, well, that's a sign that he did want to go home. Not quite, not exactly now. This particular event of walking away to cool off, it can be an isolated individual one, almost like a routine which Noah was known to do in the past. And it's happening again and again and again. Just that this time round, something has gone wrong. And, the dark reality is what you got to acknowledge. You could do something over and over again. The more times you do it, the higher the chances that something will go wrong at some point. And I'll give you an example. You could go outside, you could go on a walk, or you could walk through a park, and you do it once or twice. The chances of bad things happening, kind of unknown of, uncertain, you might get unlucky, could be unfortunate, and it scars you. But if it's normal, calm, nobody in sight, it's rather quiet, you can just walk on through, pass by, keep your head down, do whatever, then get back home, then you relaxed or you've done some exercise and then you get on with some other stuff, fair enough. If you repeat that same activity every single day for the next 5 years, for as long as you spend going in that direction and going outside, but at some point, at the wrong place, at the wrong time, you might come across someone, or you might come across an incompetent dog handler in which the dog spazzes out and comes at you and bites you, jumps up at you, and you get all muddy. Basically, you continue doing something, eventually on one of those occasions, there is a higher chance something bad, something wrong may occur. Not that you want it to happen, you just can't control all the factors out there within this world. But you expose yourself more to things, the chances increase. Just like with being online. You put yourself out there, you do one video online, you might get some criticism, you might get some positivity, and that's pretty much it. But if you continue making videos for the next 5 years, you could attract a wide audience of different people, haters, whiners, complainers, and people that support you too. It goes different ways. It all comes down to the consistency level. And based off what Caden had said, Noah would normally walk off. Okay? It is possible. I know people say about alcohol levels, Noah couldn't get that far. Well, that could reinforce as to why Noah didn't go down the highway. He only walked so far down the dirt road and then decided to stop or seek refuge somewhere. And this is where we tie it in with today's discussion. You just imagine Noah walking down this dirt road, and the question would be, how many vehicles were parked down this road in total? And I think Brooke Bounds-Carter said there was, or supposedly, a few vehicles parked further down, closer towards the highway. If they're further down here and away from the party house, out of sight possibly by the blind spot of the tree, as you see there, and furthermore, moving away from the light source, because the main light source would be near the porch patio area and that light post, what you see there in between the barn shed and the party house. If you distance yourself from it, you're going to fade into black. You're going to disappear out of sight down this dirt road. Noah Presgrove walking so far down, we don't know at what point he stopped. Now, if there were some vehicles down here heading east, he could have approached one, climbed into one, and decided to rest. Now, me personally, would that be more comfortable resting in the back bed of a pickup truck compared to resting your head, your body on a field, grassy area? Guess it depends. Do you want to get bitten by stuff? Is the ground soft? Is it spiky? There's little bits of vegetation. What's your mood levels at? Where do you really want to be? What do you want to do? We don't have hard evidence to show that Noah had climbed into a back or bed of a pickup truck and then rested, and then it transpired from there. We're just basing it off a theory and an idea, just like how supposedly, from what Jack Newton says, Zachary Wright thinks, doesn't know, not with evidence, but thinks Noah could have fell out of a truck. But how would Noah end up in a truck to begin with? I mean, the alternative, you could have argued and said, oh, well, the time of when Noah wanted to go home, and he tagged along with other people, Texas boys, but why would Texas boys be going north? Because it is possible to get back to Texas that way and maybe quicker. That's another alternative, right? But we're just based off the possibilities of if Noah was in the bed of a truck sleeping or just simply resting, waiting to cool off, or ended up fading out slightly. And when would be the next time he's woken up? What would cause him to wake up? You would think that if Texas boys left shortly after Noah had walked off, at least from Stevie Howard's comment in the past, which since is impossible to find. But as you know, my memory does stick in my head, and I do remember witnessing it. Texas boys that may have left just after 3:30 Could have been for numerous reasons, just to simply head back home. And it just happened to be the same people that were going to their truck, which Noah was resting in, driving north down the highway. And Noah, disturbed, startled, woken up, wondering, why the hell is this vehicle moving? Standing up, trying to figure out what's happening. Maybe a bumpy road or just caught off balance and then somehow falls out and hits the ground. The guys who are driving and the passenger completely unaware and continue driving on. Does that explain the colour of the shorts? That is a separate discussion point. That is something that I do need to look at when it's available and when there is good quality video to really reinforce it. Because I've seen a clip previously, but does it show the shorts with absolute clarity and confidence? No. So there's no point trying to push it if it doesn't show clear enough, because it'll just give people ammunition to whine and complain. When it's clear and when it's evident, supposedly, then it should be done as a standalone thing, and then you could link, compare, contrast to this theory or to the foul play murder theory and beyond. Yeah, there's a time, there's a process to it all. Right now, though, we're just focusing in on falling out of a truck. Does the autopsy report explain and link directly to the causes of injury sustained to Noah's body? See, the interesting thing is, even before I got heavily involved in this case and I was looking at a little Daily Mail news article, the first thing that came to my head about, a person that was found dead on the highway, could someone have fallen out of a vehicle or been pushed out of a vehicle, and as they hit the ground and then collided with objects nearby, is that what caused the damage? See, that was my first initial thought in regard to cause of death. Yeah, it was at a time of before I looked at the autopsy and before this and that. Now, people right now or in the background could jump in and say, so what's your thoughts now? What about the autopsy now? Where are you at now? I'm looking at components, okay? I can't be looking at everything all at once when things are still unstable, right? As I said, there's a process. I have looked at the autopsy previously. I have tried processing it and making sense. I think there's been a couple of videos where I went in deeper and applied it as to the possibilities, what could have caused what. And when people say, what about cause of death? What about this? What about that? How about this? What about you check my previous videos, do your research first before yapping like a wretched dog, and then you'll understand that at some points I have given my thoughts and opinions, okay? Not that difficult. And it should be titled somewhat appropriately as well. The only problem that I have with this possible theory, an idea, and I will go down to possibly street level, just so there's a bit more of a visual sense behind it. Here we are. That's the dirt road. Of course, you can't see any lighting because there isn't any lighting source, unless you write down at the house. So for that stretch of road leading up to the railroad tracks, how many vehicles were parked down that dirt road? And considering how narrow it is, it would be a bit of a squeeze, would it not? How far down or how far up were the vehicles, and which one could Noah have decided to get in? Take in mind, down this dirt road, running in parallel on both sides, there are fences going all the way down with the vegetation. So with that being present, it adds a limitation as to where you can go. Climbing over a fence, not ideal because it's barbed wire, not likely what Noah would do. And granted, on the other side here, there are some like ditches in the ground where Noah could be, but that wouldn't link in with Noah down the highway exactly. You know, got to take this in mind, right? We need to find common ground. And it looks like possibly Warlike Raph has thought of some common ground. Whether you're on the dark side or the light side, that the theme of transportation somehow involved in, at least geographically speaking, in regard to where Noah's body was found at. If you believe it to be foul play, then Noah was supposedly put into a vehicle or a pickup and then disposed of, dumped further down there. The usage of a vehicle was used. Noah's body transported from point A to point B. But if you're on the dark side or somewhere else and you believe it to be more so accidental, vehicle-based or somehow, well, a vehicle involved. Accident, possibly. But for Noah to be down there, maybe Noah was in a moving vehicle and then fell out or pushed out or something dodgy like that and hit the ground. Well, some people could say, well, the cause of death, injuries to the autopsy doesn't support that good enough, just in terms of the common ground that I think most people, regardless of whether they think it's foul play or not, would agree that a mode of transportation was used in order to get Noah dead or alive in the first place and get him down the highway. Surely majority of people would agree with that, whether you think it's foul play or accidental. A mode of transportation used in order to transport the body or Noah alive from point A to point B, whether the driver, passenger, and anyone else was aware or not of Noah being present. The more aware that they know Noah is present, then the more odd it is if they just continued on like they didn't care or did foul play get involved there somehow, accident or not. If people are completely oblivious and clueless that Noah is in the back, the bed of a truck, and Noah somehow falls out, that's unfortunate. And those Texas boys, would never know. Because this is the thing, since there's no cameras working properly down there, no cameras whatsoever down that way, just imagine if it was an accident somehow, that you had some Texas boys driving, Noah was in the back of the vehicle asleep, woken up disturbed, tried getting out or tried standing up to figure out what the hell was going on, a bit dazed, and then fell out. The guys, Texas boys, whoever they were, would not know at the time, and they would never know. If you didn't know in the moment and there was no reason to think or question yourself, then in the future you just wouldn't be thinking whatsoever. No evidence in between, supposedly, as for DNA or touch-based stuff. And as for cameras, no indication of that. So there could be people out there indirectly responsible for the death or somehow accidentally caught up in the death of Noah Presgrove, and yet they would never know, and there may never be any evidence. So then this case could go on forever and ever and ever. Infinite, which would be very unfortunate if it was based on that theory or idea. But equally, there isn't enough hard evidence to reinforce it in the first place. It's just a concept, just like the other concepts. And I word it concept because if I mentioned a specific word of another cause of death, then people would get absolutely triggered and then jump on me like horses and it'd be out of control. But yeah, the only problem that I have personally is if Noah was asleep or resting in the bed back of a truck, considering there was concern that Noah was missing at a point where search was conducted out and about from possibly 4 a.m. to 4:30 of when that Snapchat post was taken back at the party house by Logan and Carter that made it back home, along with the Texas boys that's, I think, returned back to the party house. Before that search was conducted, before the likes of the girls and the Texas boys went out searching, maybe around 4 a.m. onwards, before that, at around 3:30 to 4 a.m, did any Texas boys leave the party house in between 3:30 to 4 a.m? Because if so, those Texas boys that left in between that time to head on north could have been the ones who were unaware that Noah was in the back in the bed of the truck. And if those Texas boys hadn't returned back after, they're completely oblivious to it. And that then at 4 a.m, the remaining Texas boys, let's just put it like that, and the girls from the party, ended up driving down the highway, going so far down, and I don't know if I'll be able to get to it quick enough, but I'll just tap away, coming up to the first sand plank crossing, which is here, reaching this maximum spot, then turning round to head back to the party house and kind of like, we've tried, not knowing that Noah was further down that way, not too far away. Whereas there are counterpoints to say, well, this supposed makeshift search was only thrown in, as Justin would suggest, Justin Roy, because the dimension of geofencing or geonetting, where it would show activity of people's phone records, phone pings and data, that the reason why partygoers would supposedly have to say that they've been out searching as an alibi to justify why their phones were pinging at a certain time, at the time of Noah's death or just beyond, and near to the proximity of his body, if not closer. But at the end of the day, if it's truly true that a search was done, or even if it was seen as not a search, but partygoers were down here in this area, there'd be no need for some kind of like makeshift alibi. And even if it did expose partygoers for being here and not for searching, it still wouldn't really be that suspicious, because as long as your phone does not ping right on top of Noah's body and you're actually further away from it, then there's no indication that you've been down there, you've been on Noah's body, near his resting spot, you're far away, so you're not linked to it. It could be weird as to why you ended up here and then turned back round, but still, if you're not on top of Noah's body, the spot, then it's not as dodgy. Whereas if there was like supposedly the incorrect phone ping here and there by the odd person, Jack Newton and another person, then there would be greater questioning and a follow-up on that early on. Why does your phone ping right where Noah's body was found? That makes you a possible person of interest, and then it's followed up from there, whether it's resolved or not. But if your phone pings nowhere near to the body but down the highway, there could be alternative questions. What were you doing down there at that time? But it wouldn't link to you being responsible for disposing of Noah's body down there, because your phone may have never have pinged in that spot of where Noah's body was at. So it's not a direct link, but some people will still try and make it a direct link. So, search possibly done. Remaining Texas boys making it back to the party house. But if there was an earlier set of Texas boys, or a Texas boy that had left earlier in between 3:30 to 4 in the morning, and Noah falling out of the vehicle and landing down there alongside the hard shoulder, you can see there's a bit of a disconnect, and completely oblivious to what's happened. Could still be oblivious till this day. But, and I keep mentioning there is a bit of a problem, whether I've made it clear enough or not. I'll try and mention it right now. And that is when one is disturbed. See, like, people can be heavy sleepers. Some people can pass out and knock themselves out completely. 1 minute you're talking to someone, next minute, lights out, they're asleep. Now, maybe you could wake them up if you violently shook them or shouted down their ear and said, "Wake up, moo," something like that. But what would it take to wake up certain party goers? See, Caden Pressey said he was woken up at 2:43 because his phone was ringing. So that must mean that there was a ring tone or maybe a vibration which disturbed Caden, but not enough to wake anyone else up around. You see? The other thing what we need to acknowledge is Caden Pressey said he was woken up at 5:15 by Jack Newton bursting through the door, and the door banged. And that's kind of like what woke Caden up. So then why did Caden Pressey say, then I had to wake up the other guys and tell them? Why would you have to wake up the other guys if the noise was great enough to wake yourself up, and as well, the people that were nearby were close to you? So if you would be woken up by the noise, how come they weren't? Why did you have to wake the guys up? Just as a little question, that's all. See, some people may be heavy sleepers compared to others. Alcohol, the factors of that may come into play. Those that drunk more, maybe more knocked out than other people. Some may have a deeper sleep than others and a tolerance level. I'm just trying to figure it out. Where would that lie with Noah Presgrove though? Was Noah Presgrove a heavy sleeper or not? Would a slight disturbance or noise or voice wake him up? Because if you think about it, if Noah was somewhere down there in the back of bed of a truck, a pickup, now, I probably could. Do you know what? I'm going to do a demonstration right now. Okay, so we're here once again with a live demonstration in a way. Here's my hand. Okay, no shadow puppets. We've got the focus in at the front, the forefront, and then the people in the background. I just want to put my point across that what doesn't quite make sense is, surely Noah would have been startled long before they even got towards the highway, if that makes sense. Unless there is a bit of a middle ground in which Noah may have been resting, asleep in the back bed of the truck, then woken up upon just before reaching the highway, then asking the guys, hey, what's going on? Where are we going? And then they're like, oh, we're heading north, going back home. And then Noah's like, oh, could you give me a lift back home? But why would Texas boys give Noah a lift back home when they've got to go so far out of their way away from where they were supposed to be going? And if in the process of that taking place and Noah still accidentally fell out down the highway, then the guys, the people would have been a witness and conscious of Noah being there and then next minute not, unless they were so zoned out and just focusing on what was ahead and not making eye contact conversation with Noah in the back. But let's not jump ahead too far. So imagine this, Noah Presgrove, as you can see, and he's walking down the dirt road. He notices the vehicle there, and as he's walking up to it, maybe he's not in the best way, maybe he's drunk. Well, not maybe he's drunk, he is drunk, but he wants to rest and he needs to cool off. So instead of just laying on the ground where it could be a bit rough, rugged or dirty, because take in mind, Noah had a wash in the shower to get rid of dirt. He's now clean, I guess. Maybe he doesn't want to sleep on the floor and get dirty all over. So next best thing is to climb into the bed of the truck here, and kind of like rest like that in the back. Obviously more so out of sight. Then, if Texas boys were coming on down, one or two, to their vehicle, would they be inspecting it? Would they be walking around, looking at the back, looking at the side? Or would they be just getting straight into the vehicle to possibly go back home? You got to take that as in perspective. See, the further away the vehicle is parked from the house, the much more darker it is. Less light source, less indication to see what's in the back, less likely for it to be illuminated as well. Would they check the tailgate, the back of the pickup to make sure it's all closed up? Who knows, unless they felt it was already closed because they never opened it in the first place. Now, some people may ride in the back of the bed of a truck, possibly, in some situations, but it depends how many people are actually getting into this particular vehicle. If it's only one or two people, then there'd be no need to climb into the back. And if anyone did climb into the back, then they would have been alerted or known that Noah was there. See, at the end of the day, if anyone had come across Noah who was in the back of a truck resting, then they should have alerted or told partygoers about it. But then again, it all comes down to the timing. From 3:30 to 4 in the morning, 4 onwards when a search was conducted, if any Texas boys had left by then and they knew Noah was in a certain spot, they might have not been able to tell anyone about it nor be aware or made alert that there was a bit of concern because they've already long gone. But let's just say they got in like that or fell out. I can't fit them in, to be honest, okay? 1 or 2 people and then drove off as if they were going towards the highway. And then if that did happen and they're pulling out, Noah in the back, driving along down the highway, at what point would Noah wake up? Going over a bump, rocking about. Noah stands up in the back, wondering, what's going on here? What's happening? And then it's like, fall out, whoa, like that. And they drive on. Is that possible? There might be some chances. I don't want to go all in on it at this moment in time, of course, because there are other factors we need to look at in separate videos. But it's the noise. You know, if Noah is resting in the back of the vehicle, how asleep is he? Is he in a deep sleep, a mild sleep? You'd think when guys come onto the vehicle, they might be talking amongst one another, loud or not. Just a level of conversation like that could wake Noah up and wonder what's happening. And if not that, banging any of the doors when getting in, checking on the vehicle. And then if that wasn't loud enough, depending on the sound of the vehicle and the engine size, turning that on, the ignition, and then it's running and then starting to drive off. That could create sound as well, and movement and motion could wake Noah up even before they've exited the property. So I'm just wondering, if Noah had woken up though, whilst they're mid-driving, would there have been a conversation at any point to say, hey, you know, Could you give me a lift back home at that point? See, if Noah Presgrove didn't really want to go home at a certain point, then why would he remain in the vehicle then to end up down the highway dead? So could that exclude that and refer back to the original point of Noah was only woken up once they got down towards the highway, and in doing so, when trying to stand up to wonder what was happening, to look around, and then fell out, and they carried on driving, completely oblivious. Just let me know your thoughts down below. Transitioning back to the map, all I wanted to do now is just look on the satellite as for beyond, onwards, as in Texas boys with Noah or without heading north. Now, I'm no expert here. I want to make that very clear. Some people could tear their hair out and be like, man, you got no clue where you're going, boy. Well, I mean, last time when I did it from Caden Pressey's point of view of going around the blockade or barrier where it was closed off act, taking a road down there to a left, and then down here to a right and heading on north, well, we can put that into perspective as well whilst we're here. But, you just look at the first few roads that turn off to the left and, that being a party house, heading north, Texas boys, whoever, how many? Because the cameras down south to here, Mini Mart, I can find that on the spot roughly speaking. Let's just put it there. Close enough. Mini Mart cameras said about there was no traffic, hardly any or zero traffic that were passing on by. What about the people that were down that way at the party that were going to Texas while heading north, which would mean not coming down this way, hence zero traffic up to a point in time at least. So, with that being in mind, I'll flip the camera just a little bit. What's the first turn point? Well, it's a sandplank crossing towards that quarry, so I don't think you'd have permission to go down there. Any other crossings? There is this one here, but I don't know if that's like a private road. There are some possible private roads along the way. There's more back roads on the right-hand side than on the left-hand side. See, this one in particular just looks like a bit of a dirt road, but would you have public access to driving on down there? Does anyone know? The other crossing back that way was the first sand plank crossing, and then you got this next one here, which there's no gates or anything, but I don't know if it's private property or not, but it would mean heading in that direction, depending how far it goes. If I follow it briefly, just see, kind of goes on to a field here. If it goes onto a field, then it could be farmland or whatnot. But there is a bit of a outline of a pathway which you can follow. And then it comes to here. And you can see the outline of track marks. Texas border just being down there, and I think that's the Red River. You'd still have to be able to cross that on an actual road itself or a bridge. So you follow these track marks just as an example. Where would it lead you to? Well, a bit of a dead end in a way, unless it drops down, but it'd mean driving through a possible river and the deepness of it in some spots, just the red one, not possible whatsoever. So scrap that idea. Next turn off point, which would be here. And I think this could be the one where you don't have access to it. Does it? Because it leads directly to a house. Trailer there or something. Building there. Doesn't seem like the type of place you'd probably be welcomed. As with open arms, is this the one with the gates? Yeah. So they probably wouldn't be going that way either. GG, what does that mean? Initials of the people. So maybe heading more north. Once again, pre-recorded this, in case you were wondering. Another turn-off point there. But really, I should be following the river, as in if there is a crossing. See, I don't see an actual road which goes through it, but I could be wrong. That was another little river. See, I think there might have been some track marks in the past where you see where the sand is, if the river's dried up. If by some chance it was all completely dry, you could drive across it, but still, probably not exactly ideal. I just wanted to see how far down is it until there is a proper bridge. And obviously this is probably going way too far, but I just wanted to get an idea, you know? The satellite imagery doesn't always show that clear. Interesting. There we go. This is what I wanted. An example, just as an example. Welcome to Oklahoma sign. It's obviously much further on. You can see how far away we are, the markers. But this is like an actual bridge. Going to Oklahoma. When looking that way, even though, is there a sign down there? Jefferson County. It's too small to write in. Entering Comanche Apache Reservation, onwards Oklahoma. And then back down that way, going onwards, going over the Red River, would mean going into Texas. I'm not saying that this is the spot where Texas boys had crossed over. If anyone wants to correct me, you can. But to be honest, I remember being at this section in the past, in a previous video, where we were looking at theories and ideas to do with activity at the Red River. You can see the width of the water. You can probably guess it's pretty deep enough that you probably wouldn't be getting your vehicles across it. But if it was like really dried up, let's just say, you might get the perception. Obviously this is not a back road as like what Brooke Bounds Carter had described, but I just wanted to, you know, skip along a little bit. See the distance. Waurika over there. Duncan, Comanche over that way, the direction where Noah would want to be. But this obviously being a main road, but if you used to take possible dirt roads to it. But it's just done roughly at the moment. I'll return back to here just in case someone said, you know, you're nearby, you're close, all you'd have to do is take one left and then you're all good. Just give you the opportunity and chance so you can see what it looks like visually. How many miles on? You got that little dirt road on the side that branches off, which runs towards Ryan. Let's just see what it looks like in a particular area. Interesting. Say like there. Because no harm in just looking down. Obviously, main road, once again, the highway itself, the US 81. See part of the river where it runs down to the Red River itself. Interesting. So if anyone wants to drop like a little marker or even a possible timestamp within the video of what I've been doing as for the maps, if you want, just close that down, and yeah. That's pretty much it for now. The only other loose details I'd like to add on is, even at the time of the official time of 5:53 and just a bit before that, where you had the likes of Tyler Hardy, who was going down south, that would have been going down and past the town of Terrell, but never made it down that way that far because obviously being distracted and coming across Noah's body, one pulling up, the other one having to go so far down the highway, then turn back round and come back up. Whilst yes, that can support the idea of zero traffic or really low traffic, more so down at Terrell. But what about any other vehicles in between or just before? You know, it could be seen as witnesses to seeing it or being oblivious but passing by Noah's body at the same time or a bit earlier. That, like with Tyler Hardy, that whilst they were both driving down the road at the same time, there was a few cars or other vehicles in between. Who were they? Are they described as witnesses or just oblivious, but they were present at the same time? Where did they end up? Did they go down to Terrell? Did they turn off down any roads further on? Who knows? Because if they continued on, why weren't they captured on the camera to show that there was traffic? And as well, when you had the likes of that other individual, where this friend spoken by half of them on Facebook sometime in the past about at 5 a.m, they were driving down south down the highway, then came across side by side unexpectedly out of nowhere, and it made them jump. Well, if that woman was heading south and she made it down to the casino, it meant she would have gone past the town of Terrell, past the mini mart and the cameras would have detected her. So even if it was very low, moderate, whatever traffic, it would have shown a flow coming in or out, or more so one way when going on to work. But if people really early on, like Jack Newton and or Stevie Howard, that were saying that there was no traffic down the road, why would those individuals then be pushing at some point early on the possibilities of a hit and run? If there's no traffic down the highway in general, just because of some cameras at the mini mart, so then that justifies that if there's no traffic down the highway, that means there's no traffic at all whatsoever, but also push the idea of a hit and run. It just wouldn't make sense. But then you can use a form of negotiation to highlight there could be a form of hit and run. Not that there is now, but I'm just trying to unravel the mindset of people at the time. You can't have it both ways. Well, you could possibly have it both ways. A vehicular-based accident, vehicular-based incident, vehicular-based death, mode of transportation. If you was to interpret it as hit and run, could you also justify it by saying that there was zero traffic down the highway? Well, saying it as bold as that, you've contradicted yourself. There has to be traffic somewhere down the highway in order for a hit and run. A vehicular-based death requires a vehicle on the highway. If you say that there is zero traffic and there's none present all the way down, well then, you can't have a vehicular-based death. Either the way people interpreted it at the time was there's nothing down the highway as of from here to Rel, the town, up to the party house likely. As for beyond, who knows? But it wasn't worded specifically like that, so you're just guessing, but you're trying to interpret it. Another interpretation could be that, yes, the stretch of the highway passing down to Rel, the town, going down south, going up north, small radius of where the cameras can actually reach, show no vehicles passing on through, but whilst the highway either goes north or south, that's a little impetuous because you do have back roads, country roads, which branch off more so on the right-hand side, like what Caden Pressey did when he had to go around the closed part of the road. So there are alternatives in between and where you can turn off if you're going elsewhere, or if you turned off to then get into the town round the back and avoid the mini-mart cameras. If there was a supposed hit and run as people were pushing early on, that a vehicle could have been going north or south, made contact with Noah Presgrove, and if they knew about it, then decided to turn around and then speed off the way they were coming or going. Hence, it didn't go on in the same direction as where they were going as like the Tyrrell mini-mart cameras, hence why they weren't showed up there, but they were still hit and run, but they went in a different direction, or the way they originally came in the first place. So there's that as well that can be highlighted and acknowledged. But I am interested at least just with the woman witness driver that was going to work the casino and noticed a side-by-side out of nowhere. We need follow-up on that and more context. And besides Tyler H and Tyler Hardy, the other little convoy of vehicles that were in between them, where were they going? Where did they end up? You know, did they not go down to Tyrrell? Did they turn off at some point in between? It's a bit unknown of. So they're just the additional points I wanted to add in. And as for those back roads going on into Texas, whilst I didn't demonstrate it clearly, in a way I wouldn't be expected to in the moment because I'm not actually from the place, so I'm not going to know all the little secrets and passageways, but you never know, I might have been a little bit close at some point. You know, if we need to do a follow-up, we can. But, you know, just with common sense, if you can go north or you can go south and you can get to Texas, then you just choose north maybe for a change or because it's quicker. Okay, fair enough. And that's why Texas boys didn't go in the other direction. See, I guess in the past people were interpreting it that, well, if Texas boys going to Texas need to go south in order to get to Texas, they wouldn't be going north, meaning they wouldn't have anything to do with Noah's death. They wouldn't go past his body and they wouldn't be transporting or disposing of him that way if they were only going south. But what we've heard of since by some people of the dark side, that Texas boys, or most, did go north. And I think Tim Daniel mentioned a figure like 22 vehicles or so went north. How many of the 22 vehicles passed by Noah's body, if Noah's body was there at that time? Did anyone notice or not? Does that make 22 witnesses or not? People of interest or not? Either way, heading north without saying anyone's guilty, it just qualifies people as Texas boys persons of interest to a small extent, geographically speaking, because of the direction they were heading in. And if you wanted to take into mind the perspective of my little demonstration video, the possible acts of how Noah, yes, walks away, seeks refuge somewhere, then indirectly transported onwards, not that he wanted to, and startled by it, woken up and loses balance and falls out. Is that the absolute cause of death? No. Is it just an idea? Yeah, just like all the others. So I shouldn't get attacked. And if I do get attacked, well then, that's pretty pathetic, isn't it? So we'll see what happens next and what needs to be done next in the appropriate order, or what's available at the moment. I just hope that you found the video somewhat interesting and that you were able to focus to an extent. As I said, if you want to catch up on recent coverage, I symbol up there, you'll find a playlist. You want to drop a comment below to spread awareness, to let me know your thoughts, you can do so underneath the video and I'll respond back. If you want to hit the likes and share button on other platforms, that would be appreciated as well. And we'll just see how things go about. My name's Warlike Ref. Thanks for watching and your patience. Goodbye and good night for now.